Frustrated and seeking answers.
My word, frustrated to the point of anger.
Fullerton Cove resident Lindsay Cloud is among those to join a class action against Defence over the RAF-based contamination caused by firefighting foam.
Here we are 13 months down the track. The chemical is still leaking off the base and we have been unable to get Defence to do something about it.
Law firm Gaydens filed the proceedings in the federal court on behalf of just under 400 residents after first issuing a letter to the department demanding a detailed roadmap for cleaning up the contamination and a remediation and compensation process.
I mean, it seems simple. We have a contamination in our groundwater, in our soil. Let's clean it up.
In its response, the Department of Defence said it was unable to meet the demands of the residents within the 21-day timeframe. The residents now feel they have no other option but to continue with legal action. Lawyers representing the community have described Defence's response as wholly unsatisfactory and a slap in the face for residents and business owners. The department would not comment publicly today.
Stop the leak, clean up the mess. Let us go back to our life.
Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
It sparkles on the surface, but it's what lies beneath that's really telling. Among abundant marine life, divers inspect diffusers on the ocean outfall, which sits 25 metres below and stretches nearly 2 kilometres. Its job is to keep treated sewage away from swimmers and surfers. But it wasn't always the case. Its predecessor was notorious.
The stink pipe was one of the little names around there to have a surf, and there was a strong odour and there was some other things in the water you wanted to avoid.
Responding to changing standards, Hunter Water began work on the $23 million outfall in 1986.
To have the vision and the foresight to say this is a great investment in the economy and the health of our people, and you know, we wouldn't have this thriving, vibrant kind of beach scene that we've got today without that wonderful foresight.
It's been a fantastic improvement over the 30 years, and our international competitors really comment on about how good the water is here.
Pristine water also seen as key to the city's future.
It cements Newcastle as a tourism destination, a diversified economy. It's bringing in international visitors, it's bringing in interstate visitors.
Back-to-back wooden spoons would test the loyalty of even the most die-hard sponsors. But today, the Knights revealed the void on their sleeve will be occupied for the next 3 years.
They're a great fit for us. We mentioned before that McDonald Jones celebrate their 30th anniversary next year as well. So we're looking forward to sharing that moment.
Sione Mataudia is noticeably bigger ahead of his permanent move to the Fords.
If I can run at 100 kgs, I'll be sweet. If I could put on a little bit more, probably be a bit harder, but see how we go. If I can't run around in that, then I'll just go back to a little bit less.
The Knights' restructure is now complete, with coaching appointments now finalised.
Tony Ayub, who's currently working with the Kangaroos, will be back. He'll head up our performance team. Kurt Wrigley, who's been an assistant coach at South Sydney for a number of years, has also joined the team, as has Simon Wolford, who was a long-term player at the Canberra Raiders. So brought some real experience in. All three have been part of premiership-winning teams.
Having played 10 minutes off the bench against Sydney, Johnny Katrumbis will start for the first time in one of the A-League's toughest away games.
He's a tremendous athlete, but he's very comfortable on the ball. He wants the ball, he wants to play, he wants touches, and that's what I want.
The coach believes the teenager can thrive if he listens closely to Nigel Bogard. Keeper Jack Duncan credits the skipper for helping him grow in confidence.
I can't speak highly enough of him. He's been absolutely amazing these first few games, and he really shows to his quality, and he's a real leader out there.
Andrew Naboo returns from a groin complaint, while Jones has added Ko Degadoy and 15-year-old keeper Noah James to the travelling party.
We'll give them the opportunity, and if they do well, then they're off and running. If they don't, then that's their problem, not mine.
Meanwhile, there's positive news regarding several injured Jets. Daniel Mullen and Lachlan Jackson could be back within a month, while Ben Kantarovski's knee injury isn't considered serious and he should return in a fortnight. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
On the outskirts of Newcastle, in a sandy swamp, comes a surprising discovery.
This is the difficulty in finding these frogs. We know it's somewhere just down over in front of me.
It was here in Oyster Cove at Port Stephens where the spectacular black and white marbled frog was first discovered about 9 years ago.
So it's one of the first things that I noticed and knew straight away that it was a new species.
Scientists now know a whole lot more about the miniature amphibian since named Marnie's toadlet, with research made public today. Its unique markings and call make it an extremely rare discovery.
It's surprising that something so small could create such a loud noise.
The frog lives exclusively in the region and may already be threatened by urban encroachment.
We only know it from sandbeds along the thin coastal strip around Moyle Lakes, Port Stephens and the top of the Central Coast.
Researchers hope to secure funding from the New South Wales Government to begin conservation work. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
There's no point in moving on flying foxes in one park because we know they're just going to move across to the next council boundaries. Flying foxes don't respect council boundaries, of course.
It's definitely an opportunity. It's been a good couple of years at Edgeworth. It's good to see that they've got their eye over the league and players are getting their opportunity. To be looked at in the local competition without having to kind of get up and move somewhere else and look for other alternatives is fantastic.
He's the main event tomorrow night, and Scott Sapphire Edwards is happy about that. He comfortably made weight while his opponent sweats it out.
It's an amazing matchup. It's going to be a war. Making weight was always the toughest for me. Once I made it, I was always confident. Hopefully Joel will do the same. If you're professionally signed a contract to fight, you've got to make weight. So let's hope he makes weight.
Tomorrow night's card will feature some crafty veterans like Daniel Aman and some exciting debutantes. The show at West City is all part of Jeff Fennick and Rob Fogarty's plan to revitalise boxing in Newcastle.
This is the place that we can start filling the stadiums up again and get boxing back on the map by putting on good even fights. Start to bring some of my fights up here to Newcastle, and I think that we're going to really start building the boxing game back up here in Newcastle.
Good evening and welcome to a special half-hour bulletin of NBN News. We begin with the unfolding bushfire emergency across New South Wales, with more than 60 fires burning across the state. A large blaze burning at Cessnock has threatened homes and forced evacuations. Reporter Mike Lorrigan is there, and Mike, it's an anxious time for both residents and the firefighters.
It certainly is, Tash. Tonight we start with some breaking news. We're on First Street in Cessnock, where a home has just caught alight within the last 20 minutes. It's not clear at this stage whether or not it is related to the bushfire situation. Thankfully, crews were just around the corner and have managed to isolate it to the back of that home. Now, to that bushfire situation, hundreds of hectares of bushland have been burnt and also hundreds have been forced to evacuate south of the town and to the southeast near Aberdare. At this stage, it is a very dynamic situation. There is an evacuation centre open for any of those people who have been evacuated at Cessnock Basketball Stadium. But as I said, it is a dynamic situation. Crews here are doing a fantastic job to protect life and property, but it's still very much ongoing. Back to you, Tash.
The skyline told the story. Blue turned to grey and then black as a bushfire munched through the scrub, heading for homes.
It looks like it's heading this way pretty quick.
We're just getting ready to get everybody out if need be.
A curtain of smoke closed in on the township of Cessnock, filling the air with hot embers believed to have sparked the roof of this home. Dozens more properties in the firing line had firefighting resources stretched, residents evacuated, and the highest level of bushfire threat in place. Closer to the coast at Port Stephens, water bombers were called in, while locals went to work as a fierce bushfire on Lone Pine Road burnt at least one home. Strong winds teaming up with dry heat, the blaze quickly out of control and burning through more than 600 hectares of bushland. In Sydney, they were the perfect conditions for a flare-up. At Castle Cove, families grabbed possessions and left their homes in the path of this fire. A hazard reduction burn from earlier this week, possibly whipped up by strong winds, sending a wall of flames out of the bush and into suburbia. On the front line, a former Prime Minister and all the power of the Sky Crane.
It gives us all a fright. We've actually been asked to pack up in case we do need to go. 3 houses have been evacuated already.
The conditions were also ripe for firebugs. This small blaze at Mount Druitt covered Carlisle Road with thick smoke. It's believed it was deliberately lit. Whoever was behind the blaze can expect some swift justice. A 16-year-old boy has been charged with lighting yesterday's fast-moving fire at Cranebrook. This morning, investigators found the ignition point, a patch of dry grass not far from the road.
It's very frustrating for firefighters. They need to put their lives at risk to protect other people on the basis of some idiot that decides to think it's a great idea to go out and light a fire.
Lizzie Pearl, 9 News.
Today's strong winds have played a critical role in the movement of this fire about 15 kilometres north of Raymond Terrace. The blaze is believed to have started yesterday and was under control until fierce hot winds fanned it along the Pacific Highway and towards Buckets Way. Residents were forced to evacuate their isolated properties as the fire front moved closer. Homeowners were forced to hose down roofs before Buckets Way was closed by emergency services at about 1:30. It looked as though the blaze would continue to burn in a steady northwest direction before a wind change pushed the flames across the highway. Rural Fire Service crews were quick to respond to emerging spot fires, which took hold quickly on dry shrubs and trees lining the highway. Eventually, the situation became too dangerous for us and we were forced to evacuate and move further south. The Pacific Highway was closed to traffic about 1 kilometre south of the way station.
Steeped in history, but today another chapter closed on the old Hamilton Fire Station, up for auction and under the hammer. Inside what was once a hive of activity, now an empty shell. Down the road, its replacement, the new Lambton Fire Station, unveiled earlier this week. So, in with the new and out with the old, it's now time for this heritage-listed building to take on a new career.
The location, so close to the city, and just a multitude of uses that people could use it for.
A reserve set at just over $1 million, the property eventually fetching $1.96 million. A local building firm now, the new owners, and have plans to turn it into commercial office space. Agents say today's auction is a sign the market won't be slowing down anytime soon.
Low interest rates, I don't see them going upward anytime soon, and I think the market just keeps going along quite nicely the way that it is at the moment.
And with this property at Bar Beach selling for a record $4.7 million, expect to see prices exceeding expectation in the coming months. Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
It's starting to get people to realise how much litter there actually is on the beach, because there's a lot more than we realise, but the next step is trying to get people to not use it, because really we could be picking up litter, all of us, for the rest of our lives, but we're producing too much every day.
With father Justin watching on, Sabre stood up on her first wave in professional competition. Brother and sister were cheering from the beach while Sabre cruised into her next ride. A tidy top turn followed by a nifty chop hop. In second place and looking like advancing, it took some power surfing from World Tour competitor Sage Eriksson to eliminate the 11-year-old from competition.
And all my brothers and sisters were coming down cheering me on. They pretended the pom-poms were seaweed. It was pretty good.
Still without a sponsor, but that doesn't seem to bother Sabre.
When kids say that, oh, why haven't you got a sponsor, kind of makes me feel like, oh, should I? But that's okay. I don't really need one for the moment. I've got lots of time for that.
Yeah. All right, and a good head on your shoulders as well. Thanks for chatting to us, and well done as a wild card in this event. Good job.
Thank you, everybody.
Earlier in the day, Philippa Anderson progressed comfortably. Conditions are expected to improve for tomorrow's competition.
Imposing, unrelenting and bearing down on Cessnock. A fire emergency one residents were prepared for but hoped wouldn't happen. Flames leaping above trees, fanned by winds, constantly changing direction but always strong. The firefighting effort intensified, but by lunchtime the situation escalated. Residents around Aberdare, Kersley and Kitchener were ordered to stay put, told it was simply too late to leave.
At this point in time we've got 3 breakouts.
Residents on the fire's edge were ready.
All my documents, photos, clothes, got the horses moved down the street.
But could only wait and watch with bated breath.
We're just hoping them fires don't come over that fence line back there, them trees, because we're stuck close to our home then, yeah.
Well, this is the type of situation which has kept fire crews on their feet all day. In only a matter of minutes, this fire here at Kersley has not only changed direction, but also increased in size, sending up, as you can see, those big plumes of black smoke. And just behind those trees there are a number of homes. Firefighters, already weary from working through the night, enduring a full day on the forefront, saving properties and lives.
Fire crews in Port Stephens were fighting blazes on several fronts today. Their first task, a blaze about 3 kilometres south of the Karua exit at about 9 this morning. Firefighters were able to keep the front on the western side of the highway with the help of the DC-10 retardant bomber. At Karua itself, homeowners were on high alert. A grass fire was well managed by crews from the ground and air, with helicopters relentlessly dropping water. Many residents decided to stay and defend their homes despite flames menacing a nearby timber mill.
Pretty nervous with it still. You never know which way it goes, and it's really hard to pick which way it's going to go, really.
Wind gusts also whipped up an emergency situation for this family. Members were forced to race to a spot fire in their backyard with buckets, watering cans and anything else they could carry.
The wind sort of dies off, it's really gusty, and when you think it's okay, you turn your back and then it flares up again. Might send the family away if it gets pretty scary, but yeah, they're probably more important than anything.
Further into Karua, the scope of the disaster could be seen from the river with a smoky haze across the national park. The blaze crossed the river earlier this afternoon and could be seen moving through bush from the riverfront. This blaze erupted from a spot fire earlier this afternoon along the Pacific Highway.
And that's been driven by the erratic winds and the slope of the hill that the fire is currently running up. So firefighters are experiencing erratic fire behaviour.
Many fire crews are stationed at homes on the outskirts of town, waiting to hear if the front is headed their way.
The Jets were playing aside, coming off a 6-1 drubbing, but the first half hardly went the visitors' way. It was winless Wellington's first goal in open play this season. Moments later, the Phoenix gave Newcastle another scare. A lucky escape for Jet skipper Nigel Bogard. And before half-time, Roy Krishna again found the back of the net. There were some signs of a fight back from the Jets. A yellow card to Andrew Hoole, adding to the frustration for Newcastle, with the side suffering its second 2-0 loss on the trot.
My plan was just to smother him and just stay on top of him, but the body shot just presented itself, so I took it.
It's been a hectic workload for the Rural Fire Service's newest recruit.
This will be another live run.
Thor, the air tanker, on its third run in as many days. And today it was the township of Karua in Port Stephens in the line of fire.
Fire crews are doing everything they can here to save this property. You can see now that the flames are just a few metres away. They've got the helicopter above us. They've got multiple crews here pumping water in all directions.
Karua's 1,300 residents were warned they may have to leave, so they went into defensive mode, preparing for the worst.
Feeling like you're well protected?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The wind is picking up a little bit, but...
And this had an immediate impact.
We had a spot fire break out on the top of our property, and so it was all hands on the station.
Nearby, the Pacific Highway was clogged by smoke and fire trucks. The blaze burning to the side of the road, forcing police to shut down the M1 north of Raymond Terrace.
The objective is to stop the fire getting over to the eastern side.
It left hundreds of drivers stranded and travel plans on hold.
How long have you been waiting, mate?
2.5 hours or so.
How are you passing the time?
I've got my book.
Further south at Cessnock, cooler temperatures and good work from water bombers last night took the heat out of what had been a dicey situation. But the fire was only contained, not controlled, and this afternoon it flared up again.
At this point in time, we've got 3 breakouts.
It's destined to be another long night with a long hot summer yet to begin.
Dense bushland, fierce flames, just what the Rural Fire Service doesn't want to see. The Madawi State Conservation Area ablaze, providing anxious moments for the owners of rural properties nearby. It was a long night for Teresa Williams and her daughter Anne, with flames menacing their property like never before.
Not this bad, never.
Neighbours also at the mercy of the weather. The Rural Fire Service is taking no chances, bringing out the big guns to try and contain an already huge 90-plus kilometre perimeter. The very large aerial tanker dumping 45,000 litres of fire retardant over Swan Bay.
Crews will then go in there and back that actual physical on-the-ground job up, make sure that we don't get any spot overs.
While the winds haven't been quite as strong as predicted, the constant shift in direction is keeping the Rural Fire Service on their toes, battling flare-ups just like this one here on the side of Medowie Road. The fire, which started at Lone Pine on Friday, has scorched more than 8,000 hectares of bushland. Fire crews are desperate to stop it heading east towards the township of Medowie, backburning where they can. Thankfully, no homes have been lost to this blaze so far, but it certainly has left a path of devastation, and the danger isn't over yet.
A long few days ahead of us, I think.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
A constant struggle against an ever-present fire threat. For a third straight day, crews were pushed to the limit as spot fires flared without warning.
Yeah, we've got a possible outbreak on Lake Road. 272 is just going to investigate, also have 2 units on the ground.
The response from firefighters was swift.
Up on Rye 1, follow operations. There's still a bit of activity over there towards Kitchener, which is the centre of the fire where the main fire is burning into the back burn.
The threat may have eased, but it was far from over. Well, this has been the constant battle for fire crews here at Cessnock, these spot fires which have been flaring up right throughout the day, and while they may appear small at the start, they can very quickly take hold. Residents around Kitchener and Kersley still on edge.
All I can say is that they've done a fantastic job.
Wary of a fire which has now burnt through more than 900 hectares of bushland, the scorched earth testament to its fury and unpredictability.
No, the threat's not over until we put a stop on this and it's all blacked out.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Look at this finish in the wheelchair for men.
Looks like Hoog with the win.
This year in the New York Marathon, it killed me in the uphills.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm really happy to keep following him.
Coming off back-to-back wooden spoons, the Knights are hoping historic highlights will inspire fans old and new to become members. The turf has been divided into 30 regions, each representing a key club memory from the last 30 years. New signing Josh Starling is more excited than most to be in red and blue after his 3-year contract ended at Manly.
I didn't find out I was coming here until I think the day the boys started training, so it was a pretty quick move. I came up on Thursday, but so I was back in Wollongong, sort of just poking around for a job and seeing what was around.
Fellow recruit Ken Seo returns to the NRL following a stint in the UK. He finished the season with Hull at fullback, but has a different preference here.
I'll say wing, to be honest, yeah. I prefer wing just because I got more experience there and I still got to do things to learn at fullback.
Before the Sydney International, Anderson's best result on the qualifying series in 2016 was 9th.
I was feeling really relaxed going into this event just because there was no pressure. I've just been hanging out a lot with my friends and just maybe not putting so much pressure on my shoulders and just really enjoying life because this year's been really tough for me.
The second place finish improved her ranking to 13th.
Definitely fueled the fire for next year, so yeah, I think I'll give it another go, and I've got an amazing team here in Newcastle.
Anderson will start her 2017 campaign at Surfest. Defending champion Sally Fitzgibbons today confirmed she'll also be back.
We're in a world-class setting here, one of my favourite beaches in the world, and I can't wait to be back come February.
The women's QS 6000 is crowd-funded. Today the contest got a new naming rights sponsor.
Our duty is a start-up company and we're basically hoping to have global presence.
A golden glow as fire crews laboured long into the night. Working around the clock to protect homes west of Madawi. By daylight, some relief. Favourable weather assisting firefighters with the mammoth task of containing the blaze, which has now scorched more than 9,000 hectares.
A lot of it is property protection, so that means that we get in place, we set up for an impact which may be 5 minutes away, an hour away, even, almost a day away.
Near Kurua, crews were quick to quell another threat. Piles of hay already blackened by the inferno at risk of reigniting. While further south, residents could only watch and wait.
We've had a prediction that we're going to have a southerly today, and that's potentially going to change that fire front yet again.
Sparking fears it could be headed for homes on Swan Bay Road.
It's a bit scary seeing all the choppers.
Thankfully, no properties have been lost in the blaze, which has been burning since Friday. Backup crews have travelled from far and wide, bringing the total number of firefighters on the ground to more than 200.
It's tough and demanding work out in the field, but thankfully there are organisations like the Salvos to make sure our volunteers have time to rest and refuel.
Today alone, 900 meals will be served to hungry firefighters.
Oh, this is community at its best, This is what community is, all working together.
And that work isn't over just yet. There's another long night ahead. Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
Wrecked cars and ruined lives. On the Hunters roads, it's been a deadly year.
We've had 42 killed on the roads this year, which is 7 more than the same period last year.
That's 42 lives lost. Dozens of families change forever in a split second.
The smallest error can cause a death on our road, so it's just important that drivers concentrate on the task at hand and really just concentrate on driving.
According to the latest figures obtained by NBN, too many aren't heeding those messages, despite operation after operation and campaign after campaign.
We've had record low years of fatalities over the last 3 since 2012. This year it has increased, and we're working on the reasons behind that, and we will adjust our enforcement techniques to address the issues as they arise.
In the Central Hunter Command, the road toll stands at 11, a staggering 7 more than this time last year. 5 lives have been lost in the Hunter Valley, 10 in Lake Macquarie LAC. There's been 4 deaths in Newcastle, while 6 more lives have been lost in Port Stephens than in 2015. Statewide, the road toll is sitting at 335. That's 37 more than the same period last year. And with the busy Christmas holiday period approaching, expect to see more of this, whether it's here in Lake Macquarie or elsewhere in the Hunter. It's a warning police hope all drivers heed. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It's the norm for people now, and by and large, I'd say 90% of the population do a fantastic job. There's maybe 10% of people who, where there's room for improvement, but yeah, this is a real community norm nowadays.
At 100 feet or 30 metres long, the Supermaxi Loyal looked like a fish out of water as she was craned back into Newcastle Harbour after major repairs. Anthony Bell's carbon fibre racer, with its deep canting keel, suffered major structural damage in its last 2 attempts to reach Hobart, forcing crew members to withdraw from the race on both occasions. So they brought the boat to Newcastle, where a team of shipwrights has been repairing the damaged frame and reinforcing the hull to withstand the huge stresses the boat will face speeding through ocean swells.
Some of the level of sophistication of this composite work is you'll only see it on race boats such as this. You'll see it in the Formula One race cars and very few other places. So it's a very niche little market, and we're very fortunate that we've assembled a team over many years that can do this type of work.
When the latest Loyal was launched in 2013, she made it to Hobart in second place on line honours. Disappointed with the last 2 failures, the owner is spending $500,000 on repairs and new sails.
Last year really tested all the boats to the limit. It might be a much easier race this year, but in theory, this boat should now be able to withstand anything that's thrown at it.
Nathan Brown has made no secret of his desire to sign an outside back. Matt Gidley was only informed of Ben Barber's situation shortly before his interview with NBN News Today, and any suggestions the club could make a play for the wayward star would be premature.
I think footy's sort of been probably a pillar of stability for Ben throughout his career, so he needs to take some time away and get himself and look after his family before he entertains playing football again.
Between them, Mark Sargent and Mark Hughes created some unforgettable moments for Knights fans. One's etched in time and now available to members. Sarge's 3 tries against the Raiders and Hughes' spectacular effort against the Bunnies are front and centre in the club's membership drive.
There's so many people out there with so many different great memories of this wonderful ground, and certainly watching this made the hairs on the back of my neck sit up.
The moment that I feature in is sort of one that people still sort of ask me about and all that sort of thing. So it's one of those things that's resonated across sort of the decades, and in some respects, this is a perfect opportunity to bring those ones back up.
The Knights are pulling out all stops to market their 30th season, today formally launching the plan to see fans sponsor their own patch of McDonald Jones Stadium.
We wanted to do something new, we wanted to do something innovative and something unique, and we wanted to reward our members with something new in this space.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Back at home, following a frustrating trip to New Zealand, the Jets have just 2 training sessions to prepare for Tim Cahill's Melbourne City. The coach wants to move on from the Phoenix loss, but can't understand why there's been no mention of Roy Krishna's offside goal for Wellington, while this attracted huge attention in Sydney FC's game. Mark Jones wants his squad to stay positive despite not scoring in its last 2 games.
I think it's good that we actually get to make up for the Wellington game sooner rather than later. Emphasis is to go there, press with a little bit more urgency and take our opportunities.
Andrew Naboo and Alexander Coco have been added to the starting lineup, with Jones hoping they can form a lethal combination in attack with Andrew Houle and Morten Nordstrand.
It's good for us. We've now suddenly got everyone at the top end anyway back, and that allows us to play people in their best position.
Jones admits he still has decisions to make in defence, but teenager John Katrumbis looks like retaining his place in the centre alongside Nigel Bogart.
For his first game in the A-League, I thought he was quite sound. He was confident, he tried to play out. Had a couple of dicey moments, but apart from that, he was confident, and I thought he did a good job.
It's the future of our air defence, and the Hunter will now be playing an even bigger role in the operation of the Joint Strike Fighter.
This is really a great outcome for the region. It really builds a strong foundation for aero skills in the Hunter.
BAE Systems Australia at Williamtown is among a raft of companies that will maintain and repair components of the new generation jet in the Asia Pacific from 2018. It includes work on the aircraft's avionics and oxygen systems. It's a huge coup for the region, bringing with it hundreds of new jobs, millions in economic activity, and a potential career path for local high school students.
The apprenticeship programs and the scholarship programs that will create the workforce here in the Hunter to support JSF.
And BAE says this is a sign of more good news to come. The company believes it's in a stronger position now to attract more work in the future.
There's another competition coming out next year. Obviously, this is a strong position we can leverage off to secure as much of that work in the region, here in the Hunter, supporting aircraft in the Pacific.
Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
We had a good run with the weather last night. We didn't get a whole lot of rain, but there's a little bit more coming down the valley at the moment. Those guys are being supported by our air crews, who are using FLIR cameras at the moment to identify hot spots on the edge of the fire that we'll need to focus on over the coming days with this cooler weather.
It's habitat and loss of homes for them. There's no food here at the moment, and all the animals will starve if we can't help find them.
Images of devastation. Last year's April storm and subsequent flood emergency caused heartache across the Hunter. A natural disaster Nelson Plains farmer Murray Schaefer will never forget.
It was just unprecedented. By 9:30 in the morning, it was all over Red Rover.
The cattle producer counts himself among the lucky ones, but says the flood forced him to reevaluate.
We've now built some hay sheds. We're buying a heap of hay. It's a total revamp of the way we thought we were going to do things, and so now we're fully prepared for the next flood.
Flood readiness is the focus of a new step-by-step kit launched today by Hunter Local Land Services.
We know what Australia's like. Floods do happen, they happen regularly, particularly here in the Hunter region, and this is all about ensuring that farmers have the help to prepare themselves.
The resource, the first of its kind in New South Wales.
Last year's flood was certainly a stark reminder for all of us of what can happen in this area if you're not ready.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
To some, it's worth savouring, but for those with hay fever, taking time to stop and smell the roses is not an option. This spring, pharmacists say they've been run off their feet, with demand for antihistamines twice as high as last year. The cause, a combination of higher than average pollen and dust particle levels. Mix in several days of bushfire activity and you have a nasty recipe for those with allergies.
The levels of dust and pollens, definitely pollens, are just astronomical at the moment. And add to the bushfire sort of issues, there's a lot of people with coughs and hay fever and even more asthma.
The wildflowers throughout the central parts of the nation have been the best they've been in about 20, 30 years, creating a huge amount of pollen that's been carried across the region thanks to the westerly winds.
Yesterday, dust levels across parts of the Hunter were high. Mount Thorley recorded a very poor reading, just one step away from hazardous. That's since improved thanks to a southerly and rain overnight. But if you're still feeling the itch, there are plenty of remedies. However, pharmacists suggest Mother Nature can also provide a solution.
Go and dive under some waves for the salt water, and that's drug-free solution and can be useful.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
He's quickly adapted to life in the A-League and become a fan favourite. Brown says the Asian Champions League aspirations of owner Martin Lee were a big factor in extending his stay.
I want to be a big part of that, and for me it's the happiest I've been in years, you know, on and off the pitch with the family, so I'm delighted.
Like Brown, Andrew Naboo has been on a roll. Today he was named the Jets Player of the Month for October.
It's always good to start the season well, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Naboo returned from a groin injury off the bench against Wellington, but is hoping to have a bigger impact against Melbourne City.
The groin's back to normal, so hopefully looking forward to getting some more game time this week and building on that.
City has some of the best strike weapons in the competition, meaning the Jets can't afford to focus solely on Tim Cahill.
It's really good for him to be back in the league because, kids love him and whatnot, but, where he's another player in that team and they've got a lot of quality around him.
For me, I think they've been a little bit hot and cold this season. If we compete and play to our levels, that we can beat anyone on our day in this league.
Chinese import Ma Lei has been added to the squad for the first time, while Ben Kantarovski is back on the training pitch, hoping to return from a knee injury in round 7.
We wish Luke, of course, all the best now with the Socceroos, but we move on. We don't talk about, it's a big loss. He's been training, he's getting through it, and I think it's exactly what he needs for the coming weeks.
It's been a while since Sam Pullman has been able to call Newcastle home, but it's now a reality after signing with the Giants in the revamped National Netball League.
I just love living in Newcastle, so to be able to be at home with my family and obviously my boyfriend is just nice, and this is where it all started, so yeah, it's nice to be back.
After 4 successful seasons in Adelaide, the 25-year-old wants to make the most of the new beginning. The league has undergone a transformation with more exposure and opportunity for netballers.
Yeah, I'll always be thankful for Adelaide and the fans because they were amazing at bringing me in, but the opportunity to come home and a new league was just something that I couldn't say no to.
Pullman is the only Hunter-bred player to be playing professionally in the National League. With an extra team in New South Wales, the defender believes more local players now have a better chance of making it to the top level.
Now that I'm back, I'm hoping to be involved in Newcastle netball and the Hunter and have be that role model for girls to actually know that someone from here has reached the top level.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.